What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Dad's podcast here on the Old Cranky Man Collectibles channel. My name is Rugley, joined today by my co-host Stefan Mahoney Pinty Het and our special guest
Hi.
Ryan Brown. How you guys doing?
Rubber duck sauce.
Great.
Rubber duck sauce, baby.
Rubber duck
Rubber
sauce
duck
in
sauce
the
online.
house. So we are here today because Ryan made the top 8 of the Summer Lawnlander qualifier with Menace of Modern, that is Nadu Winged Wisdom in Canadian Highlander. It's not just a Menace.
Everybody's least favorite bird wizard.
I don't know. I think the card's pretty dope, to be honest. Silence.
We are here. I think we are all of the strong opinion that it is a very strong card. That is like that. I don't think is an opinion. That I think is a solid and well discerned fact at this point.
The card's quite literally cracked.
Yes, but whether or not it belongs in certain formats, I think is a.
Well, the cool part about Canadian Highlander is that you can only have one copy of the card in your deck, and your deck is 100 cards. So like your statistical probability of finding that card in any given game is like reduced, right?
Yeah, right? And you can play everything,
right?
Except for a small subset of cards, you can play every broken thing. And this bird is not more broken than Black Lotus.
Canadian Highlander rules. Canadian Highlander forever.
It is hard to argue with that, Ryan.
Okay, before we get into this, please subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn those notifications on so that we get to annoy you every time we upload a video. So real quick, let's get a little download of Ryan. So Ryan, this is not your first time guesting here on the podcast, is it?
No.
So you qualified for the 2023 Lawnlander Championship via points, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Largely playing the Naya Initiative or Naya Monsters deck, right?
Yep, my baby.
So green-white creatures is sort of already your wheelhouse.
Yeah,
and up until... Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, here I get to play... what is objectively the best color with cantrips and other stuff.
Objectively the best color. So you gave up. So what you're saying is you gave up red for blue because of this bird.
Yeah, this bird is broken. It's an engine that can just turn into a combo and win the game.
Hell yeah. So
outside of that, there's other green-blue mythics that are okay, right?
Right.
Yeah, Simic's pretty good.
Yeah.
You are already, in fact, qualified for the 2024 Lawnlander Championship because you won the Spring Lawnlander qualifier with Naya Monsters.
So the pressure was off, and I got to play a fun deck that turns out to be good.
You got to play a fun deck that's like absolutely cracked.
Oh, I have a ton of fun playing it. My opponents, that might be a different story, but like I get to take so many game actions. I get to do so many ridiculous things.
So real quick, before we get too far into the weeds in here, we understand what Nadu is. What does the Nadu deck look like in Canadian Highlander? Like we've all seen it in Modern, right? What in Canadian Highlander are you doing with it specifically?
So it's mostly a mid-range deck with fast mana, creature tutors, Nadu, and a couple of ways to turn it into a combo to win the game. But that doesn't happen every game. Sometimes you just play a mana dork into either Oko, White Plume Adventurer, ton of busted cards, and you even get nothing in your combo really requires points, so you can just throw whatever you want in there, which I've chosen Moxen, but other people have thrown in Seeker Walk or other things.
What's your 10th point?
Right now it's Survival, and I've been testing some other things. It may or may not stay Survival.
So the overlap between Bant, Nadu, and Naya Monsters is that there's a fair amount of overlap there, right?
Oh yeah, you get to still play the good initiative threats. You get to play mana dorks, fast mana. uh, and some creature tutors.
So even
I'm
though,
not.
go ahead.
Oh, I'm not on the creature disruption suite in this deck that I am in Naya though, because
Gotcha.
I'm the threat. They have to answer me.
So you're talking about like Thalia, Ava the Mind Sensor, stuff like that, right?
Right.
You're still running like the premium removal suite though, like
Oh
swords,
yeah.
path, solitude, that kind of thing. Obviously not fury, but I mean white's got the removal that you need generally for the threats when you need it, right?
Right.
Yeah. As everyone saw from our metagame, or sorry, the recap of the tournament a couple weeks ago, the entire tournament was basically dominated by white decks in various flavors. So, all right, without further ado, let's bring up Ryan's top 8 deck list. Here it is. Everybody can see that now. Ryan, we are just going to start at the top of this and kind of go through it one card at a time. We're going to start with the Planeswalker. So you've got Oko, Thief of Crowns, and Teferi Time Raveler.
These two aren't banned in any formats, are they?
They are actually.
Yep.
Not in like a lot of them though, right?
Several. If
they
you
are
don't mind me
both
saying.
very strong cards that can be synergy pieces. Yeah. Yeah. They're like, you're in the colors, you play these cards.
Right. Obviously they do sort of different things, right? Oko can just sort of take over a game, win it on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And then Teferi is the control player's worst nightmare.
Or just bounce a non-hasty threat and draw a card and buys you a lot of time.
Yeah, I suppose that's true, huh?
There's a lot of power in just playing one of these on turn 2. Also, mana dork into one of these is kind of insane. Your chances of winning that game go up tremendously when you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Turn 2, 3 mana Planeswalker, pretty good game plan. Yeah, I think that's sort of like that's going to be a theme, I think, in the deck, is a 3 mana card played ahead of curve. Pretty good.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, let's get into some of these creatures. So you've got a total of 33 creatures in the deck. 2 of the evoke elementals. You've got both endurance and solitude. Anything you want to say about those? I'm sure they've been discussed at length.
Yeah, they're good to hard cast. They're good to evoke. Like, good all around.
Quickly on endurance. In the modern deck, it is used to loop your own deck, right?
Yes.
Is that the game plan with you? Like, can you do that as well?
You can do that. You normally don't have to, but if you bestow Springheart Nantuko onto an endurance with a way to sacrifice your lands, you can infinitely replay all of your lands. And with the Horizon lands, stack your deck in a certain way by doing 2 different endurance triggers to put all of your other cards in first, and afterwards putting the channel land that you want on the bottom, so that you always know that it's your last card. Sacrifice the Horizon land to get either Boseiju or Odawara at the end of the loop, and repeat this over and over to bounce your opponent's board.
Oh, wow.
Or
yeah.
The loop is much easier in Canadian Highlander than it is in Modern, because we get to play Wasteland, which not having to manually Boseiju every one of your opponent's non-basic lands saves a lot of time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, this doesn't come up often. The only time you actually have to do that is if your opponent has the 1 ring protection or some other way of not dying that turn.
Oh, that makes sense.
But effectively, the loop is your opponent ends up with no permanents in play, and you have an infinite amount of insects, and you say go.
Right.
You don't win on the same turn, kind of, but there's I don't know that there's a possibility of them coming back.
Well, that is plan B or C. Plan A is to generate a lot of mana with Gaia's Cradle once you've drawn a lot of your deck and can cast Finale of Devastation. Or And
Yep.
X equals at least 10 and swinging for a few hundred damage.
Yeah, it actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Blake, I
that
think
sounds
is
a lot
correct.
better to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and if going through one more iteration of the loop, if for whatever reason X of 10 to 20 is not enough, you can use a blue source, Guy's Cradle, and Eternal Witness uh, with Snap to return Witness to your hand, recast it, untap your Guy's Cradle and a blue source to generate infinite mana and swing for a couple million damage if you have to.
Snap is
If
the
you have.
coolest bounce spell, I swear.
Oh
Snap
yeah,
is so
I-
good.
Big boomerang energy here.
Big boomerang energy. Okay, let's talk about some of these mana dorks. So you have, let me count them real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Do you have any 2-drop mana dorks?
no, I'm not on any
it
of
just
those.
looks like 10 mana dorks. Keep in mind, I did not actually count Deathrite Shaman as a mana dork, even though it is.
Yeah,
So,
I was wondering.
so if you count Deathrite Shaman, it's 11 or 10.5, however you want to work that out. A lot of these green-white based mid-range decks are on like 9, so you're playing an extra one, and I think that's like Arbor Elf, right?
Arbor Elf. I've seen the Snow One Boreal Druid in some of the list.
Yeah,
I
sure.
don't like the card.
Yeah.
It's not a great card. And
Hey man,
it's not
sometimes
my
you got to
play.
do what you got to do. Okay, you need
Yeah.
that last mana dork.
Right. Other one drops you have are Allosaurus Shepherd. This is a pretty neat card.
MVP against blue decks.
Right, can't be countered. Green spells can't be countered. So, well, I mean, that's like what 50% of your deck.
Yeah, somewhere around that.
You sort of have
how about-
to protect this.
How about the dinosaur mode? Right? Does that come up a
Never
lot?
used it once.
Never
Never
used
once.
it. This is just a what is that card called? A hex. What is that card called?
Hex Drinker.
No,
City of Solitude.
no. The Gruul, the 1-mana Gruul card that makes it so your spells can't be countered.
Oh, Vexing Shusher.
Vexing
Vexing
Shusher.
Shusher.
It's a Vexing
That,
Shusher.
that one you have to invest mana into though. This is always.
Yes, you do. You additionally you have both Giver of Runes and Mother of Runes.
Protect that bird.
I just curious, just out of curiosity, has it ever come up that you've had to give your a creature protection from colorless and not been able to shoot it?
I'm not sure. I mean,
I
have
sincerely
given
doubt
protection
that's ever come up.
to stop it being bounced with Caracas.
Oh, sure.
But
Oh yeah, I guess it's true.
yeah, Shuko's. We'll get to it later, but Shuko is the worst way of activating Nadu in the deck.
Oh no, not the Shuko.
Not a good card.
So
Shuko actually bad card.
Caracas, like I always every game that I have Caracas in, I feel like it's like this insane card, right? And then I had it in one game
Oh yeah,
against a Nadu in the Cedar Rapids tournament. I believe it was in my game against Jeremiah. I had a Caracas against a Nadu, and the Caracas felt so bad. Like my
Yeah.
opponent gets to draw a card or like play a free land every time I Caracas this stupid creature. Like absolutely not.
it is great with Nadu though, especially if you have an instant way of triggering creatures. You can dig through your deck for Caracas to save your creature at instant speed.
Oh Lord.
Why does it put it in play untapped, my dude? Why does Nadu do that?
Yeah,
Because the card's great.
Nadu is a great card.
Sure.
Fair and balanced.
Undeniably powerful.
Moving on, we have a Nomads in Core. This is a card that the modern version of the deck does not get access to.
Right. Legacy All-Star has been great in various breakfast decks.
Yep.
Like the ability looks completely worthless, but it can target itself. It can target as many times for 0 mana at instant speed.
So is this
Yep.
the best
This
way
is-
to go off with Nadu?
this is the best way to go.
This is the best
This
way
is
to
the
go
two-
off with Nadu.
The 2-mana version of Outrider Encore. Because Outrider is the modern legal one.
Nomads
And
is Nomads is 1 white mana.
It's only 1?
Yes.
Yeah, Nomads is 1.
It's white for a 1/1.
My God. That's absurd.
2 more 1-drop creatures. You've got a Sylvan Safekeeper, which when we were talking about Endurance before, needing a way to sacrifice those lands so you can recycle your deck, Sylvan Safekeeper also does that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that Sylvan Safekeeper does? Obviously, you can sack those lands to protect your creatures from removal spells.
And if you're desperate, you can use it to dig through your deck. Say
You can target.
Yep, you can target with it. You can target the same creature twice with it, even though it has Shroud, because you do it the second time before the first ability resolves.
Sure.
You respond to the first ability on the stack.
Yep. You don't like sacrificing your land, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
When you've got 30 in play, I think you're doing just fine there.
Yeah.
Last 1-drop creature, we have a Tamiyo Inquisitive Student. So this was one of the top 5 most played Modern Horizons 3 cards in the Lawnlander tournament that you top 8'd with this deck in. I'm curious to hear about this card. Tell me about Tamiyo Inquisitive Student in this deck specifically.
I mean, it's not really on game plan. It's just a strong enough card like Oko or Teferi, where there are some games it just wins itself. Where if you flip it early, especially against slower control decks, like it flips, it provides repeated advantage, and if they don't remove it, you draw half your library. Or
that
it can be a
good.
reroll. Yeah.
That seems okay to draw half your library and get it and never have to discard.
Yeah. And
if you don't win from that, you're doing something wrong, right?
Right. And occasionally just making a bunch of clues that sit around as Oko fodder or whatever. Like it puts rectangles on the board.
You are on Urza's Saga. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But those are artifacts. And that card's pretty messed up too.
All right, moving on to the 2-drop creatures. You also have the most played card from Modern Horizons 3 in this tournament, and that is Johnny Nakatl Pariah.
Yeah, this card is insane. It has hidden text of cats you control can't be blocked because your opponent just never wants to flip it. So you can just swing with your 2/1 and they will just if they have a 5/5 on the board, your 2/1 just gets through.
I'm a big fan of that mentality. I have not heard that phrase like that before. Cats you control cannot be blocked. Love it.
Yeah. Was there ever a consideration to throw Ocelot Pride in this deck just to kind of like take advantage of the additional cats?
I never tried it. Like, it's a good card. It does stupid things.
Sure does.
The slots in this deck are very competitive.
Yeah, this is one of those decks where Ryan, you and I have spent a fair amount of time talking about this deck off of the screen, and this is the deck where you kind of just want to play 200 cards.
Yeah, if I could play,
there's so many cards.
Yeah.
Throw a Battle of Wits in there, baby. Make it to 288.
Remember when you used to be able to play 10 more points if your deck was 200 cards?
Oh, yeah. It was 10 points per 100.
Yeah, those were the good old days.
Go to 300 cards, play 30 points.
Yeah, I think you brought this up where this is one of those decks where if we had a sideboard, I would definitely play the 20 extra cards and just throw Yorion in here.
Heck yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we did talk about that. Yeah, that would be sweet.
Yeah, Yorion, especially with some of the abilities, like just having that extra card in hand that allows you to rebuy the ETB effects.
Yep.
But then Luke would also be able to do that, and I don't want him to have that.
Oh.
Right. Anytime I can take something away from Luke, I will.
Bristly Bill,
renowned Jeskai player Luke.
Oh my God,
yeah,
we're not going to go into that right now.
Bristly Bill Spine Sower.
Yeah, you put a lot of land into play. You have every fetch land possible for a extra beatdown plan, or, I mean, it triggers Nadu when you play land. Like, it doesn't go infinite, but it might draw you 3 to 5 cards in a turn.
If you can loop all your lands, though, you're making infinite mana. You can infinitely double the counters on everything, and then effectively have an immediately enormous board that just kills your opponent too. Like the mana sink is insane. This is a card that's so Ryan Brown. I don't know if there's a more Ryan Brown card.
In the modern versions of this deck that don't really run Finale of Devastation, this is your way to not pass the turn. If you have like a Birds of Paradise or something out that doesn't have Summoning Sickness, when you start comboing, you just put 20 counters on it and swing.
I mean, there's no arguing with that. Like a 20 power Bird of Paradise will kill your opponent just as much as, bouncing all their stuff.
Yeah, faster usually.
Get them dead. Yeah, get them dead.
You've got, let's see here, Survival of the Fittest at Home in Fauna Shaman, a creature that you can use to go find basically anything in your deck. Fiend Artisan fills a very similar role to the Fauna Shaman. Shaman in Core is basically just another Nomads in Core, but it has an extra ability that lets you redirect all of the damage dealt to it to something else.
Yeah, it rarely comes up, but occasionally.
Yeah. Basically just there for the redundancy, though, I would imagine, right?
Oh, yeah. Having enablers at different mana cost in order to neoform into it, or
makes sense.
Eldritch Evolution and whatnot.
Makes sense. Spell Skite, which is another way to go off.
Or it protects your Nadu mostly.
It does protect your Nadu, yeah. It fills a very similar role to some of those other creatures. Like
that's like 4 creature protection spells now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
really
a bunch
of them. To get exiled.
Spring Heart Nantuko is a pretty central card to this concept, and if I'm being honest, it's almost just as broken as Nadu itself.
Yeah.
It's part 3 of the combo. Like, without a way to make tokens, you can draw like 8 to 10 cards, usually. But with a way to make tokens, that's how you draw your whole deck.
Yeah.
Because every time a land comes into play, you make a 1/1 insect. Like this one has the Bestow, which can do some insane things, like we talked about with Endurance. But it's also just 2 mana to have a landfall trigger of make a creature.
I think it's also a thing to point out that when you bestow a creature onto another creature, which in this case it's only 2 mana, it's the same casting cost, and if you have something that's worth bestowing on it, you might as well, because it dodges the removal of it. Like, it doesn't die to creature removal, it avoids wraths, it avoids even Terminus. Like, if they Terminus you still have your Spring Heart and Tuco at the end of that. It's sort of just like the card that is situationally whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, card is great. It is very underrated.
I think it's my favorite card for Modern Horizons 3. Not because of Nadu, just because I think that the card is very, very sweet.
Oh yeah. I do see why you need so much creature protection, though. In looking at all of these pieces, so much of what you're playing are 1/1s and 2/2s. Like, everything in your deck dies to kind of a stiff breeze, except for Nadu.
Yeah, until we get to some of the initiative threats later.
Oh, yeah, we haven't gotten there.
Stoneforge Mystic, of course, that goes and finds Shuko. Let's pause for a second and take a look at any other equipment that you might be playing. Oh, there's just one. It's a Skull Clamp,
which goes great with the Johnny.
Oh, you mean draw 3 cards, make a Planeswalker?
Yep. Just one-sided double Howling Mine.
So if you have your Spring Heart Nantuko out and you target one of your bugs with this, and it flips a land and puts it into play untapped and makes another bug, you can use that untapped land to equip it to the bug, kill it, flip a card, draw 2. So you're just drawing your entire deck.
I was honestly so before we got to Nomads in Core, and he said that was the best way to go off, I was thinking that Skull Clamp was the best way to go off, because you get to ancestral recall every time you target one of your things. Like,
Yeah.
you flip over the top card, either it goes into play or it goes into your hand, and then you draw 2 more cards. So like, you're for sure gonna find a land somewhere in there.
Yeah, and I had to manually combo once because my Nadu got exiled, and yeah. Do we have time for a quick story on that?
I hold on, let me bring it back to our faces.
Okay,
Always ready.
so I was facing Joe on black white recurring nightmare on his awesome black white deck that he was playing.
Yeah, the Chthonian
And-
Nightmare deck is very sweet.
Yeah. I was behind on board and I had to rush out a Nadu just to get some advantage. I ended up flipping a protection spell, but he played Solitude. I went to protect Nadu and he had the Ephemerate to exile Nadu. So Nadu is out of that game. There's no way of me getting it back in the deck. I had to use Springheart Nantuko and Scoot Swarm, which we're getting to here in a second, along with Gaia's Cradle and Skull Clamp. And I eventually tapped Gaia's Cradle for 78 mana.
Oh my
and
god!
The rest of my library.
Oh wow, that's insane.
Average Gaia's Cradle tap.
Right.
Just curious, did you win that game?
I won that match 1-0.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I
you-
remember this game now. I remember this game because the
I
judge called
remember
time and you were like shuffling up for game 2, and I was like, game 2?
Yep.
That's crazy. Okay, back to the deck list. So that is it for the 2 drops. Moving on to the 3 drops, we have Eternal Witness, which we have talked about a little bit already. An important part in some of those bestowed Nantuko lines. And then, of course, there is the card, the namesake of the deck itself, Nadu, Winged Wisdom, the 3/4 flyer for 1 and Simic. And it says, creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes a target of a spell or ability, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, put it into your hand. This ability triggers only twice each turn.
And that
As
is
if
an
everybody
ability-
didn't know what the card did already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That twice trigger is for each creature,
Correct.
not total per turn.
Yes.
Yep.
Which is
And
sort of a messed up part.
And if you bounce and replay Nadu or flicker it in
It
any way,
resets all
it
of those.
instance of Nadu and resets the instance. So
Yeah.
all of your creatures can trigger an additional 2 times.
Neat.
Yeah, the ability granted is tied to the creature, not the creature tied to the original creature that grants it.
Scute Swarm is basically Nantuko 2.0, right?
Yes, but it goes bigger. Because
It does
if you
go
have-
bigger because eventually it gets like out of control where you're just making like a 30 Scute Swarms a turn.
Yeah, I'm going to recommend anybody who has questions about how powerful Scoot Storm is, go watch old arena games in like 2021 after this card was in standard. The degenerate Scoot Storm players that would crash arena.
Yeah,
I've
lightning
done that
card.
more than one time.
Yeah, it's not hard.
Scoot Swarm is the insurance. Like you can definitely combo with Nantuko with any token creator, but once you have Scoot Swarm out and you hit that 6th land, there is no way of missing because then you have 2 Scoot Swarms, 4, so on. And when you play a land and you get 16 creatures, that's 32 cards. Like you aren't missing.
There's a calculator that does this math for you.
Right.
Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath, one of those fine Simic 3 drops we were talking about.
Yeah,
Why
puts
not?
lands into play,
Yeah.
gains life, draws cards.
Why does it gain life? Why does it do that? That's the most perturbing part of it.
Everything this deck wants to do: gain life, draw cards, put lands into play.
Perfect.
Oh
Of
my
course,
God.
White Plume Adventurer, which we've already talked about a couple of times. Seasoned Dungeoneer.
Uh-huh.
Any special things you can do with a Seasoned Dungeoneer in this deck?
I mean, it does target, but mostly it's an unblockable way to get the initiative. It can draw lands, and I mean, It's
Exploring
a really
is
good
good.
card. Yeah.
Exploring is real good.
Nadu is a
Have you ever
wizard.
checked that? Oh, it is?
Yeah.
No, he's a wizard. I mean,
Oh, that's right. Bird wizard. It's a bird wizard. It's the another idiot bird.
yep.
And of
Oh,
course,
God, gross.
Undermountain Adventurer. You can't leave home without these busted rare cards, can you, Ryan?
No, like the first one to make it in the deck was the Undermountain Adventure because I sometimes you don't want to find Nadu on an empty board and having something that you can Summoner's Pact or Green Sun Zenith for. You need a good green creature that's good in almost every situation, and that's Undermountain Adventure.
I mean, you're not wrong.
There's a blue Eric Cocker Sneak. That's a 4-mana blue one. Was there consideration to have that guy in there as well?
It'd probably be fine. Like I didn't want to make this an initiative deck. It just kind of became one because they're really good cards.
Yeah, there was a recent discussion on our Discord about like sort of the current standing of creature combo decks and how a lot of creature combo decks have sort of the easiest path for a creature combo deck is to create pressure from the initiative so that your opponent is fighting the initiative while you are setting up the creature combo.
Get him with the old pincer maneuver.
Yeah, basically. And so having the 3 good ones is sort of, it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the sorceries. First up, we got Gitaxian Probe because there's nothing better than perfect information. Am I right?
Yeah.
Seems good.
It's a great card. Put it in all your blue decks.
Green Sun Zenith to find all of those juicy creatures.
Yeah. Toolbox card.
That only gets green creatures.
It does only get green creatures.
Is there an important green creature in your deck?
1 or 2.
Multiple.
Interesting.
Ponder and Preordain, of course, as just generally powerful cards. These ones are commons, not mythics, though. Steel Shaper's Gift. That's pretty interesting, considering that you only have Shuko and Skull Clamp. Tell me about Steel Shaper's Gift.
Yeah, it's a low casting cost tutor to get your combo going. You can grind out games with Skull Clamp. Like, it's a good card. I'm not sure if it's going to stay in the deck forever, but for right here, it's good.
Fair enough. Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Tutors in general seem to be pretty powerful, especially if they're getting like the piece that you need to do the thing.
And unpointed.
That said, if you can do a creature tutor to get your Stoneforge Mystic and then use that to get the sometimes like the roundabout way is a little bit simpler too.
Right. Well, I mean, when you do things like that, it's like effectively an Ancestral Recall.
Oh yeah.
Because you get the Stoneforge Mystic and then you get the equipment and then it just snowballs out of control after that.
Stoneforge used to be a point.
Maybe it still should be. Finale of Devastation. We've talked about this card pretty extensively, I think, already. This is sort of your game plan A, right? This is the first plan. Finale them for a billion.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does everything. It wins the game. It finds Nadu. It gets creatures out of your graveyard.
That's important. It gets an Eternal Witness out of your graveyard to then cast or get into play to then rebuy it.
So this is like a sneaky piece of text that this card has that I think a lot of people forget about is that it is a reanimation spell as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Why play Craterhoof Behemoth when you could play a better card?
When you have all of the mana in the world. Then you've got a couple of creature tutors in Neo form and Eldritch Evolution.
Natural Order at home.
Yeah. They find Nadu. They find a lot of your other combo pieces. They're mana efficient directly into play.
On to the instance. We have Mental Misstep.
Yeah.
How does this perform for you, Ryan?
Great. Like, card is messed up.
Right up there with Force.
Never dead.
Yeah, so many cards people play at all points of the game are 1 mana. Like this card is great.
Some of the most powerful
and
Magic
not to
cards that have ever been printed are at 1 mana. Many of them are pointed, and being able
yeah.
to counter your opponent's points for 0 mana is bananas.
And not to jump the gun, but there are no other counter spells in this deck.
Yeah. This is the best one, I guess.
Yeah.
Summoner's
It's an
Pact.
interesting carryover.
That is another creature tutor that finds Nadu amongst other things. This card
Yeah.
also
You mean
it also used to be pointed. No, you're never paying 4. It's always 0 mana.
yeah.
Yeah, it's 0 mana. Like occasionally you have to pay the 4, but it's a 0 mana way to win the game.
Generally, it's a haha good joke. What next turn?
Yeah.
Brainstorm, because we love busted cantrips and we're playing blue cards, so why not? Crop rotation is interesting. So you've mentioned you've mentioned Gaia's Cradle a few times. Is that usually what you're
Yes.
getting with this? And then of course, I guess you also have the Caracas, and then as a third choice, probably the Wasteland, right?
All of those, or Field of the Dead as my token
Oh,
producer.
sure, yeah, that's another like Springheart, Nantuko, Scute Swarm replacement, right?
See, I went
Yeah.
right to Urza Saga because I'm a degenerate.
Urza Saga 2, and more times than you would think, I crop rotation to find a fetch land, getting a Nantuko or Scoot Swarm trigger.
Just get more
sack
triggers,
that fetch land,
yeah.
get another land,
Yeah.
and just
yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
There- I-
you
Get
mean
multiple
crop rotation
creatures.
is Ancestral Recall in your deck? Is that what you're telling me?
That, sometimes, yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
never gonna stop making this reference because I think that it is very eloquent way to describe Canadian Highlander as a whole.
We've stopped attempting to stop you from doing that, Blake. You go off, King.
It is a very eloquent way to describe this format to people that don't understand it. Moving on.
The quick 3-for-1.
You've got
Yeah.
a Legolas's Quick Reflexes.
Yep.
I mean,
card
Stefan,
protects Nadu, it kills creatures.
yeah, Stefan said that
Uh-huh,
that
uh-huh.
Mental Misstep was the only counterspell in your deck, but I would argue that Legolas's Quick Reflexes is also a counterspell.
Yeah, it's also a removal spell.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to protect Nadu in the deck. Mental Misstep is the only counter.
It's also a proactive protection spell, which is wild. The fact that it is in a lot of situations a silence because they can't respond to it. Your creature is protected until end of turn, and you just get to do whatever you want then.
Yeah.
But like, what if they made silence 1 mana? How would you feel about that?
Silence is 1 mana. What are you talking about?
Oh, well, there you go.
Speaking of silence, the next card up is an Orim's Chant.
Yeah, protects from counter spells, removal, and if you don't have the full combo and you only draw like 6 cards or whatnot, passing the turn and casting Orm's Chant on their upkeep is a good way to guarantee another turn.
Yeah, so we played in this tournament in round 2, and you did that to me twice. Once on a really crucial turn where I was about to combo you.
I like these kicker cards that sort of allow you to play them modally, where like with stuff, the good kicker cards like Vines of Vastwood or this, it allows you to either do one thing really well or to go over the top and buy you extra time or to kill somebody immediately. Like sometimes you just need a fog, and that's okay. And if you get the turn, it's I mean, what's that? Time Walk, right? It's Time Walk.
It's pretty much Time Walk.
Time Walk, yes. 100%.
And one thing I didn't mention earlier, with the instant speed targeters, passing the turn, if you don't go off, you get to draw that many cards again on your opponent's upkeep. And getting an extra turn to do that, to draw a third set of cards.
That's a really
guaranteed.
interesting aspect of this, actually. As long as, okay, so you saying that Shuko is the worst way to go off makes a lot more sense with that statement because it's strictly sorcery speed.
Yes.
So getting to pass
Yeah.
the turn, okay, on your upkeep, I'll do 12 of these or however many it is. Maybe find that Orm's
Right.
Chant. Maybe find that, whatever it is to stop you from doing your thing on your turn. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then like
the plot thickens.
Yeah. You still get the ability to channel your lands and do all that malarkey at instant speed, literally whenever. That's kind of messed up, dude.
Yeah. Oh,
Have you thought about seeing a therapist?
Nah, dude.
I'm a degenerate, and
Okay,
Oh my
so a
gosh.
couple of premium removal spells in Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshares. I haven't figured it out yet, but there was a heathen in the tournament, two of them actually, that were playing Swords and not playing Path. I'm glad that wasn't you.
Nobody in the top 8. If all the top 8 players that were on one were on both.
So yeah, 7 out of the 8 top 8 players had both of these cards in their deck. Worldly
Who was the person who didn't, Blake?
Mono red.
Mono red.
No, I didn't have it.
Oh, yeah. So
sorry,
six.
so
Only
6. Sorry, 6 out of the top 8. My bad.
Oh my gosh.
Worldly Tutor as a way to find all of these combo pieces. Eladamri's Call, again, a way to find all of these combo pieces. If you have your Nadu, you can get Stoneforge Mystic to find your Shuko and get going. If you have Shuko, you can find Nadu. Like, both of these cards just tie the deck together, right? Neither one of them are pointed.
Yep.
Yeah. I think Worldly used to be many, many years ago.
I don't ever remember Worldly Tutor being pointed.
Yeah, Worldly and Enlightened used to be 1 point. This was back when like Mystical was like 3.
Blue deck syndrome at its finest. Snap, the best bounce spell in the game. Court of Calling will find literally any creature in the deck, and when you're making a billion land drops in a turn, it typically can find the way to close the game out really quickly, right? Because you can go get
Nomad's Encore.
It can also tutor for 0 mana.
Oh, sure. Are you playing Dryad Arbor?
Yeah.
No, but just with the Convoke, if you
Convoke
run out of
because you have a billion
insect tokens or whatever.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Artifacts. We already talked about your point spread. You are on triple mox survival of the fittest, or you were in this tournament.
Yeah.
You've also got a chrome mox. So I don't recall if it was you or not, but I know some players are concerned about exiling colored cards from their hand as far as card advantage or not having those. That does not seem to be a concern here, is it?
No, I draw so many cards. Let me go faster.
Yeah, blue decks get to take advantage of this more than
want to go fast.
Red, white, or green decks.
Yep.
Chrome Mox is sort of an all or nothing in non-blue decks, but in blue decks it feels like an easy include.
Yeah. Cards banned in Modern for power level. Like, card is insane. Yes, there's a downside to it. That means it is not literal
power level. Power level.
I also will argue that I don't think Chrome Mox should ever be a point. I think that the downside of having to match the color, the color of the card you're exiling, going down a card in hand, and it's exiled, not just discarded. Thank you, Mox Diamond. The card is well balanced for our format.
Yeah, I still think it should go in more decks than it's in.
The 2 equipment we have spent a considerable amount of time talking about. That is Shuko, one of the combo enablers with Nadu, and Skull Clamp, also a combo enabler that allows you to grind out games. And then you've got a copy of the One Ring. So this is a card that some of the Nadu decks in Modern are not playing anymore. At the Pro Tour, when Nadu was the breakout deck, basically all of them were playing 3 or 4 copies of the One Ring, and some of them are not on it anymore because Orcish Bowmasters becomes a real concern. You don't have to worry about that as much in Canadian Highlander, though, but tell me about the One Ring in this deck specifically.
I mean, you have a lot of fast mana to get it out ahead of curve, and you just want to find your combo pieces and survive. It does all those things. Everything that I've kind of said about every other card, this one does very well. Like, you normally don't have to worry about dying to the damage because once you hit your combo pieces, you're not passing the turn.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about, oh no, I only have in 3 turns my one ring will kill me because you draw your combo pieces and you win that turn.
Excellent. Love it.
It also does the fog thing.
Yeah.
Like we talked about, having just an extra turn, like one more turn. Sometimes that's all you need. Like just casting this and then waiting another turn so that they don't kill you with their Minskin Boo or whatever Alpha Strike they had lined up.
Yeah, so
that player is now like, oh gosh, okay, well.
Moving on to enchantments, you have just one copy.
Yeah, but when is this instant?
You have one copy of Survival of the Fittest. That is your point. We've talked about quite a few of the lands in here. You've got the Beseiju. You had mentioned annihilating your opponent's mana with those. You've got a Cavern of Souls to make your creatures
that's an interesting one.
Uncounterable.
Cavern?
You've got Go ahead.
Oh, I mean, forcing through your Nadu or whatever combo piece hasn't resolved is great for it, and being able to crop rotation into it to be able to force through whatever you need. Like, it's good.
I feel like you have a lot of flexibility in this mana base that you don't necessarily get with other decks.
Yeah, I do a lot with the mana base other than just cast spells.
Green is like your heaviest color, but then everything else is besides I think Solitude, everything else is sort of single pipped in non-green cards. So the dip is easy into those colors, and green, you've played green. You sort of sneeze and make 1,000,000 mana in green.
Yeah.
Which, I get it.
All right, you've got a Field of the Dead, which we talked about as sort of another copy of Spring Heartland to go. When you've got those 7 lands in play, you can just make 1,000,000,000 creatures to target over and over again. I'm assuming you're playing all 10 of the fetch lands that you can play in these colors.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You've got the Gaia's Cradle. How many of these Surveil lands are you playing?
I'm on 2. I only have the green ones.
You gotta pump those numbers up, baby.
Okay, that makes sense. You've got Horizon Canopy, and I'm assuming you've got the other Canopy land in here.
Yeah.
A Caracas, Ottawara as another channel land. You have a Pendlehaven, which is pretty interesting.
Yep. I mean, if nothing else, it targets stuff to draw a card if you have Nadu out.
Once again, 0 mana, draw some cards.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever used your Arbor Elf with a Yavimaya in play to untap like a Gaia's Cradle?
He does not. Oh wait, sorry, my bad. Go ahead.
I've never actually done it, but I hope to.
God, I've seen what you've done for others, and I want it for myself. Grant me the unlimited mana spell.
Shifting Woodland. Tell me about this card.
If you haven't resolved one of your combo pieces or they've removed it, Shifting Woodland becomes a Nadu, a token or a way to target stuff.
That seems pretty insane.
And you can tap itself too.
Yes, it can tap itself. Or it doesn't have to tap to do this ability.
Yeah.
And it has some extra synergy with survival because you can discard the card and then turn it into it if you're
that's pretty dope.
Yeah. I like that a lot. That's interesting.
Yeah, it being basically a second copy of any one of your combo pieces that your opponents have dealt with is very, very good. Urza Saga, of course.
And it's... Oh, yeah.
Urza Saga, of course, Wasteland we talked about, and then that Yavimaya that we just brought up. That is the deck. So,
one quick thing about Yavimaya, like it is not just for extra green mana. A lot of times you get to a certain point where your life is so low mid combo that you can't actually fetch anymore, and being able to still tap those fetch lands for mana.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
sometimes important.
Yes, that does sound very, very important. Okay, that is Bant Nadu by Ryan Brown. Let's bring this back up to our faces. There we are. What is up? Okay, so Ryan, I gotta ask you, what is
Yeah.
your favorite card in this deck?
Oh, I mean, it's got to be Nadu.
That makes
Like
sense.
the card, everything is based around it. Like there's so many cool cards in this deck, but like it's based around that card.
Excellent. Okay,
And
so
it works well, like surprisingly.
yeah, yeah. It's crazy how you can build a deck, 100 card singleton deck about one card, and somehow it just all comes together, and all of the pieces fit into place, and there's plenty of redundancy, and then like you have this one card, and like the whole game plan is just around that one card, and everything works.
Yeah.
But all decks have their weaknesses. What are this deck's weaknesses?
Combo decks that are faster than it. Because
Okay.
I don't have counter spells. I don't have a way to meaningfully interact with like a time vault most of the time.
Sure.
So combo decks that are faster than me are bad matchups.
Do you have any other bad matchups?
Um, like Jeskai and Check are tough but not unwinnable. Like mine is pretty tuned against control decks with all
Yep.
of the ways of making stuff uncounterable, all
Right.
the protection spells.
Kinda
I've
just-
tuned it
Kind of
as
just depends
much
on
as
who
I
draws
can.
better, probably.
Yeah, I've tuned as much as I can to be good against Jeskai and Check, and I'd say it's still just 50-50.
Makes sense. So if you were going to make any changes, and we did talk about this before, potentially change the points or update the deck in any way, how would you go about doing that, or what changes have you already made?
So what I'm testing right now is survival out, natural order in,
Okay.
and my natural order target of choice is Atraxa, because
Gotcha.
drawing cards, gaining life, it can single-handedly win the game against a lot of aggro decks.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
Go ahead.
And one more change that I'm trying out just to get around some of the weaknesses of the deck, trying out Force of Will instead of Orm's Chant. Like
Gotcha.
I'm so mana hungry, I can't leave up 2 blue mana to counterspell something, but having a way to stop a balance or a time vault or something like that. Or if I whiff, Force normally gets you another turn. It's
does,
not
yeah.
as cut and dry as Orm's Chant, but it can stop the thing to get you another turn.
Yeah, it can do things that Orm's Chant
yeah,
can't
it makes
do.
sense.
So what do you think this deck's biggest strengths and best matchups are?
Mid-range decks against especially non-blue mid-range decks. I can hold the ground pretty well. I have lots of games where I will have a fast mana start and just take over the game. But if they don't kill me, I eventually will draw into my combo and just win the game. So like versus lands decks, mid-range, especially green-based decks, like I feel like I have a huge advantage.
Yeah.
I put up a respectable creature plan and then just go over the top of everything.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It was last year, the last Lawnlander, where I believe it was you versus Jake Scott in the finals. He was able to assemble an infinite combo with Kiki Jiki. You were both on the Naya Initiative or Naya Monsters deck. And he had the Kiki Jiki combo in the deck, whereas you did not. And it's a very similar concept where you're playing these grindy green mid-range creature mirrors. One of you has an infinite combo, one is you don't. Like, who has the advantage? It's probably going to be the deck with the infinite combo.
Yeah, 100%.
If you've got something you're digging towards rather than trying to dig out of something, like
yes,
parity is a situation where it favors the deck with an infinite combo inside of it.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan, anything else you want to say about Bant Nadu and Canadian Highlander before we let this one go?
It's a ton of fun. There's still a lot of room to brew in it. I'm not on the perfect 100 cards. I'm going to keep on testing and refining this deck, and it is so much fun to play.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, pretty excited about it. I like this deck a lot. Hey, thanks for coming on the podcast today and talking to us about this deck. Congratulations again on the top 8. Listen, viewers out there, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn those notifications on so that we get to annoy you every time we upload a video. There's a link to our Patreon campaign down in the description of this video. Ryan himself has been a Patreon supporter of ours for quite some time. We appreciate that, Ryan. Thank you so much. And with that out of the way, we just want to remind you that we're proud of you. Bye.
We're proud of you. Thanks, everybody.